Hello and welcome back to We Talk Football. I'm Lance Leach.
I'm Brian Wagner.
This is a couple days early, but happy Halloween to all you out there. My favorite time of year.
One of my favorite times of the year.
So our website, wetalkfootball.org. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's where we have our articles. You can access our podcast from there.
And also in the future, we recently rebuilt, retooled. In the future, we're going to have a huge rankings, what we think, per position. You should be able to access all the YouTube videos from there, all of our articles, mostly from the homepage, with how it's been redesigned. And it should, I know there was issues, at least on our end, like the mobile site being too slow to load. It should be a little bit faster now.
And you should also go like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter.
And subscribe to us on YouTube. I'm not sure what the equivalent is to SoundCloud, but like us or subscribe to us there, and then subscribe to our podcast on iTunes.
All right, so we'll kick things off in usual fashion by reviewing the previous week.
Terrible week for us. Terrible week.
Yeah, it was. We'll bounce back.
It's a good thing I did not tell you to take our picks to the bank, because you'd be really upset with us. I'm upset with us.
If you had done it let's see.
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago we were on point.
Previous 3 weeks, you would have been sitting pretty, but last week, not so much.
It's terrible.
All right, so Chargers-Falcons game.
Wow.
So, ends regular time, 30-30.
It shouldn't have ended.
Should not have ended. Going to overtime, Atlanta. No, it was 30.
Was it 30?
Yeah, it was 30.
I thought it was 27.
Goes into overtime. Atlanta receives the ball, gets to about their own 48-yard line, I believe.
Yeah.
4th and 1. Well, 3rd and 1, first of all. They decide that they're going to QB sneak it with Matt Ryan.
Which he got stuffed.
4th and 1, they decide they're going to go for it on their own 48. Now, you don't get this. You're giving the Chargers the ball back with, 18 yards to gain, and they're within field goal range?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they didn't get it. San Diego moved down inside the 20. Phillip Rivers did a nice little run to the middle of the field, nailed the ball, gave their kicker the nice lineup, and Lambeau put it through the uprights, and the Chargers beat the Falcons 33-30.
I mean, in the Falcons' defense, their offense has been one of the best this season. The second half, the Chargers controlled that game. I can understand, on Dan Quinn's standpoint, I don't want the Chargers to have a chance. If we get stuck in field goal, I don't want them, because they're going to move the ball like they were all second half. They were just all over the Falcons' defense. So I can kind of get it, but that close to midfield, I would have taken my chances, pinned them deep. You probably could have easily pinned them inside the 5, but time to move on to the next week.
Yeah. Moving on to the next game.
Yeah.
The Ravens lost their 4th straight game, this time to the Jets, who have magically found their 2nd win of the season.
All it took was Fitzpatrick getting benched for a quarter.
Yeah, a quarter and a half.
Excuse me.
Jets won at 24-16. Fitzpatrick, you'll find out his stats for sure later. I think he was 9 for 14, had over 100 yards, a touchdown, no picks.
Which I think that's the big kicker right there. No turnovers for Fitzpatrick.
Plus, Matt Forte ran for over 100 yards against Baltimore's run defense, which has been pretty much relatively unheard of so far this season. Mm-hmm. So he had a hell of a game. And then the Lions win another game in the final minutes. This time beating the Skins 20-17. The previous 2 weeks, they intercepted Case Keenum to close out the game and Carson Wentz to close out the game. So I think it was fitting that this time Stafford had to carry them down the field and put it in the end zone to get the win.
I know you'll love this. Did you see that Skip Bayless, after the Redskins went down, scored their touchdown that put them in the lead 17-13? Skip Bayless sent out a tweet praising his Redskins about, that's how they win the game. And then Lions went back, scored, won the game. And I know how much you dislike Skip Bayless.
Oh, yeah. Love it.
All right, my side. Colts and Titans. The score, 34-23, doesn't do the game any justice. It was definitely a lot closer game. It was one truly, I believe, the Titans very much could have won. Colts were entirely undisciplined. 12 penalties for 131 yards. That's ridiculous. Colts scored. They were down 23-20 with about minute 55 left. Luck scored Doyle, 27-20. Ensuing drive, Mariota, first play, strip sack. Robert Mathis took it, scored touchdown. So what ultimately pushed it to being as far as it was. But Titans definitely had every chance to get that win. Kind of upset with them that they didn't. But, hey, I mean, helped Luck move to 8-0 against the Titans. That's a pretty astounding little career to have against one team.
Domination.
Giants and Rams. That was the London game. I think that was the first game at, I can't remember the stadium's
I'll say
name.
this, I was happy I was at work for this game, that I did not have to witness what happened.
I turned to NFL Network just as Case Keenum threw his pick six, and I was like, that's the game right there. Sure enough, he threw 4 interceptions on the game. 2 of them were just terrible. Miscommunication with the receiver in the back of the end zone. Rams started 3-1, have lost 3 in a row now. Jeff Fisher came out and said that he will change wide receivers before he even touches the quarterback situation.
That rant was hilarious.
I think that they really need to start Jared Goff. I know he got some first-team reps starting on Wednesday. They really need to think if they want a chance to contend in this division, which they've now fallen, I think, 2 games behind Arizona. If they want to stay in this, because the only way they're going to get into the playoffs at this point is if they win the division, they need to make a change at quarterback. They spent a lot of their future in getting Jared Goff for him to sit now 8 weeks on the bench. Rams have missed playoffs 12 seasons in a row. They can't afford to miss anymore.
They've been average since Jeff Fisher's taken over. 7-9, 8-8, nothing special.
And yet he keeps getting extensions.
Yep.
How do you keep getting extensions at 7-9? I don't get it. If this was Madden, he would have made the playoffs and still been fired. Happened to us. Personal story. Bucks and Niners. We predicted it. The NFL analysts predicted it. Bucks throttled Niners. It looked like it was going to be either a one-sided Niner affair or at least a close game first. Niners went up 14-0. I'm sitting here like, what's going on? Then the Bucs scored 27 unanswered points, and it ended up being what we thought it would be. Kaepernick looked awful again. He went 16 for 34, 143 yards, and turned the ball over twice. They thought they'd get an improvement going from Blaine Gabbert to Kaepernick. I don't see it. I don't know what they're going to do now. Chip Kelly runs a supposed quarterback-friendly offense, but it hasn't looked too friendly for these 2 quarterbacks, so don't know where they turn to next.
Well, they're on bye this week, so hopefully he'll get something figured out for them.
Hope so.
Maybe they really should think about doing Christian Ponder.
They might. It kind of worked out last year, at least in Blaine Gabbert, when he took over halfway through the season. He did great. All right. That's all I've got for the week in review. We've got some injuries here. Shady McCoy not practicing today after injuring his hamstring last week in practice, and then also was removed from the Dolphins game with the same hamstring injury.
They shouldn't have put him in.
They
need to let him rest that.
Yeah, hamstring injuries, they're tricky. As everyone knows with Doug Martin, kill me. You take a little setback and it could be weeks. Corey Coleman, know you're excited about this. He is returning to the field soon. He broke his hand in the beginning of the season. And also on that side of the ball for the Browns, Josh McCown is under expectations, at least personally for him, that there's a good chance that he could play this week. Broke his collarbone.
Just to elaborate on Coleman, he is not expected back this week.
No,
next
soon.
week he's expected back. They're hoping to have him back. He's looking like he could be.
Can't imagine he wouldn't be. It's been 6 weeks now. Broken hand, small bone.
Yeah.
Deshaun Jackson is limited with a hamstring and a shoulder injury. I think he's questionable to play this week. Jordan Reed is finally back on the field after being out the last 2 weeks with his 5th or 6th concussion. I keep saying different things. Jay Gruden did say that if Reed's not cleared tomorrow, he will not travel with the team to London. Same goes with Josh Norman, who's also in concussion protocol. If they're not cleared, they will not travel with the team. So just keep that in mind. Don Jackson, the kid who was signed from the practice squad for Green Bay. He did not break a bone, and he's expected, if the swelling goes down and if he can grip the ball, he should be playing on Sunday. C.J. Anderson suffered a bone bruise, expected to be out a few weeks. Did see something that said he's getting a second look at it, and if it goes bad enough, he could possibly be out the rest of the season. So those that haven't picked up Devontae Booker yet, and if he's out on your waiver wire, Lance will talk about him later. Dante Moncrief returned to practice. Philip Dorsett's expected to be practicing sooner than later. And then Julius Thomas for tomorrow's night game, he is questionable with an ankle injury. So keep an eye on that if you're an owner of him.
The way Bortles is playing, I wouldn't recommend putting him in anyways. So,
all right.
Well, on that note, we'll move right into fantasy starts and sits.
Yes.
And I'll kick it off with quarterback. I'm starting Ryan Fitzpatrick. I mean, if he's on your team, start him. If you are looking for a bye week fill or an injury, replacement, go grab him. He's going against Cleveland. He's angry. We saw it in that press conference. And he closed out the game, and here are the stats. He went 9-14 with 120 yards and a touchdown, no picks, to close out the game against Baltimore once he took over. Yeah. And then you look at the Browns' defense. They've given up 18 passing touchdowns so far this season. I believe they've only have 6 interceptions.
Wow.
They're bottom 5 in passing yards allowed. So, yeah, they've just been allowing anybody to throw all over them. Fitzpatrick could be a solid fill-in this week.
All right. My start, chances are you probably aren't running with him, but you should be running with him soon. Alex Smith. The Chiefs, they kind of seem to be transitioning away from the run and airing the ball out more. Not only are they starting to air the ball out more, but they're starting to go a little more vertical with the ball. We saw that last week against the Saints. They've got another good matchup again this week against the Colts, who have given up the 8th most yards through the air. And they've also given up the 10th most touchdowns this season. So Alex Smith is definitely one I would go grab for at least for a bye week fill. My sit, I know this, especially he's been playing great so far this season, even dating back to last season. Matthew Stafford. I don't think this guy's getting enough, at least on our end. We don't talk about him hardly at all. Definitely, I would look to avoid starting him this week. He's going against Houston, who has been really tight on in the passing attack. You can run all over him, but going through the air is not really an easy thing to do against him. So I would kind of put Stafford on the back burner, at least for this week.
My sit's Cam Newton against Arizona. No, it sounds a little weird. Cam Newton's such a big name. But
hasn't meant anything this season.
Carolina as a whole hasn't been themselves this season, and I know they're coming off a bye week, but how much can you really expect them to be ready? I mean, we've watched quite a few teams. Minnesota just fell flat on their face a week after their bye.
Definitely did.
And then you look at Arizona's defense. They've given up 5 passing touchdowns total this season, and they have 9 interceptions so far as a unit.
They're a good defense.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough one for Newton. I'd leave him on your bench if you have a better option. Maybe Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Maybe Alex Smith?
Maybe.
Running
backs. I'm saying start Devontae Booker. Breyer touched on it. C.J. Anderson is doubtful now. He's supposed to miss 2 weeks, I think. Yeah. Maybe the rest of the season, depending on how bad it ends up being. And with him out, Booker will be the every down back for Denver. And San Diego's defense has allowed 9 rushing touchdowns this season.
Wow.
Plus, we've seen what Booker can do over the last 2 weeks when they've increased his carries. I think last week he had 16 carries for 88 yards and a touchdown. The week before that, he had 9 carries for 50 yards. I mean, he has the explosiveness and the ability to run with the ball. So, yeah.
All right. My start, Giovanni Bernard. He's been seeing some more carries here down the stretch, and then with Hill's status up in the air, I expect him to, he's going to see what the majority bulk of the carries, and he's got a good matchup this week, going against the Redskins, giving up the 7th most rushing. I cannot talk today. 7th most rushing yards and the 4th most rushing touchdowns on the season. So I expect Giovanni Bernard to have a really good day.
Plus, if you're one of those people that wakes up early to watch the London games, you'll have somebody to cheer on in the process.
My sit, I know this is going to be a very unpopular sit. Bear with me. I said this, when Atlanta went against the Broncos. I said sit them against the Broncos defense because it's the Broncos defense. And then they presented to run all over me. But I'm saying sit Devontae Freeman. Devin Coleman's status, is questionable right now. So obviously Freeman's going to get the bulk of the carries. But the Packers are number 1 against the rush. Mm-hmm. That hasn't changed.
In both. They've only allowed one rushing touchdown.
One rushing touchdown. Not to mention their passing attack is terrible. Ryan should be just airing the ball out to his many options. So I expect Devontae Freeman to kind of see a downtick in points this week.
My sit's Jordan Howard against the Vikings. The Vikings rank top 5 in rushing touchdowns allowed and top 3 in rushing yards allowed. Sit them. It's pretty simple. Plus, Jay Cutler's back, so it's not like you really have to fear guarding this. The secondary. You don't have to worry about putting multiple people back in the secondary. They could stack the box against Howard and not have to really worry about Cutler beating them. My start at receiver is Will Fuller against Detroit. I know Osweiler's playing awful. We've all seen it. But it would be very difficult for him to play poorly against the Lions defense that has given up 18 passing touchdowns to the air. That's right. They matched Cleveland in how many passing touchdowns allowed. And they're allowing an average of 273 passing yards a game, which makes, in my opinion, both Hopkins and Fuller must-starts, especially considering that they're not very good against tight ends, and C.J. Fedorowicz isn't really... He's not a weapon like Hopkins and Fuller.
He could become a weapon against Indianapolis, and we'll see. Maybe it'll just be open season. My start is Mike Evans. Mike Evans has been, quietly ticking along. He's top 10 in receiving this year. He scored a touchdown in every game except one, and that was against the Broncos. He scored 2 last week. He's got the Raiders, who have had almost no luck in stopping the pass game. They're the worst in the league right now in stopping the pass. They've given up 13 passing touchdowns. Mike Evans he's a guaranteed touchdown machine every week, so I'd definitely make sure I'd start him. All right, my sit, Tyrell Williams. He's a kid that's kind of come along lately, especially with the the bulk of the injuries that San Diego has had. I'm going to sit him. We saw what happened to him just 2 weeks ago when he faced the Broncos the first time. He was held to 3 receptions, 28 yards. That was in San Diego. Now they're going to Denver where it's infinitely harder to play. I wouldn't expect him to have a breakout game.
For me, I'm saying sit Deshaun Jackson against Cincinnati. You had touched on it. He's got some injuries that he's dealing with, but from what I was reading, he is supposed to play. Doesn't matter. Leave him on your bench. He's been largely ineffective this season. He has just over 300 yards and only 1 touchdown. And now he's going against a defense that's giving up more points to tight ends than they are receivers. Just leave him on your bench. Vernon Davis, Jordan Reed, if he plays, they'll see the bulk of the passes, more than likely.
Deshaun Jackson, he's always been a player that's had highs and lows. He's never been a consistent fantasy player, but this season he's just seemed to have more lows than anything.
All right, tight ends. My start at tight end is Gary Barnidge against the Jets. So since week 1, when Barnidge had his little 2-target, 0-reception game, since then he has averaged 6 targets in each of his games. Averaged. So anywhere between 5 and I think 8 is the most targets he's had. Well,
I almost regret letting go of him.
Now, if Josh McCown's good to go, he's one of McCown's favorite targets all last season. That's why he did what he did, because of McCown. Manziel's favorite target was Benjamin. When McCown was in, Barnidge was the guy he was going to. And if McCown can't go, well, then you have a rookie quarterback in Kevin Hogan who's going to use his tight end as his safety valve. So Barnidge should see plenty of targets, and the Jets' defense ranks, allows the 10th most fantasy points to tight ends. So I'd go with Barnidge.
My start is
Barnidge.
I'm not going with Barnidge. I managed to pick up Jack Doyle. That's who I'm going with. No, but for here, I'm going to start Jacob Tamme. I know he's been real quiet last few weeks. This week, got a good draw. It's got the Packers. I know I just said they're a really good rushing team. Their passing defense is terrible. One of their worst spots on their defense is stopping opposing tight ends. So I'd expect Jacob Tamme to at least maybe have a breakout game this week, given the fact that they should be airing the ball out more than usual. My sit, kind of go off Lance's sit for quarterback. I'm going to say sit Greg Olsen. The Cardinals, they're a tough team. They're a tough defense. They've yet to allow a tight end to score this season. And with the troubles that we expect Cam Newton to have, I don't see that changing this week.
I wish I could stop doing that. My sit is Coby Fleener against Seattle. Like I said last week, Fleener has been a volatile fantasy option. He's had 2 big weeks, and the rest of them have been really low. And now he has another unfavorable matchup back-to-back weeks. So, yeah, leave him on your bench. Use somebody else. My start for kicker is Matt Bryant against Green Bay. And I actually am starting him. I went out
How are you?
and picked him up because Justin Tucker's on bye. Green Bay's allowing 20.5 points per game. And they are one of the worst pass defenses in the league.
They really are.
And Matt Ryan to Julio Jones connection is alive and well. I could see them putting Matt Bryant in plenty of scoring situations, whether it be that they end up in the end zone and he kicks an extra point, or they end up down within field goal range and he kicks it through the uprights. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the same path here. My start, Nick Novak. He's going against the Colts, who have given up 5th most points per game this season. San Diego, they've proven that. No, not San Diego. Wow. Houston. I'm sorry.
Used to be in San Diego.
Used to be. I'm sorry. I'm stuck in the past. Always do that. No, Houston. They haven't been the highest scoring team this year. Nick Novak's been pretty consistent. He's ranked the 6th highest amongst kickers for scoring. Last week, he scored all of Houston's points, and that was against Denver. So I definitely expect there to be at least more points on his end. My sit, it's Connor Barth. Barth has scored he has scored 5 or fewer points in 5 out of 7 games this season. And like you said earlier, they've got the Vikings. They're on lock all across the board, scoring, passing, rushing, whatever you can come up with. Vikings are on top or near the top. So especially with Jay Cutler back, I don't expect them to be putting up many points, if any.
My sit is Dan Bailey against Philly. Dan Bailey has actually quietly been one of the top kickers in fantasy this year. But with Jim Schwartz as the Eagles' defensive coordinator, he's going to find ways to get after Prescott and put him in poor situations and keep them from really moving the ball. And the Eagles are only allowing something like 15 points a game.
Wow.
So if you have another option like Matt Bryant's available on your waiver wire,
Nick Novak.
Defense. I'm saying start Tennessee against Jacksonville. Thursday night game. Tennessee's playing at home. They're playing against, in my opinion, their biggest rival. I love the Jacksonville-Tennessee games. Even now, they're not great teams, but they're still fun to watch because it always ends up being one wins one game, and then the other game ends up going to the other team. It's almost always a 1-1 split.
And they're never boring games either. They're usually pretty entertaining. It's not like huge blowouts. It's always a dogfight to the end. Fun games.
Jacksonville's offense is averaging 19.5 points per game, and their turnover differential is -7, which means they're turning the ball over way more often than their defense is getting the ball back for them. And then look at what Bortles has done this year. I know personally because I have him on my team, and it's been awful. Yeah, I like Tennessee this week.
My start for this week is saying start the Raiders. They've got Tampa Bay, who surprisingly, not surprising, however you want to look at it, depending how close you follow the team, they've been pretty turnover happy. They're ranked 4th in interceptions with 9. They're up near the top for fumbles. So that's going to allow the Raiders plenty of opportunity. The Raiders are a really good team at getting takeaways. So I definitely expect there to be a lot of opportunities for the Raiders here, and they know how to capitalize on these opportunities. So my sit this week, I'm saying sit the Seahawks. The Saints, they're a high-scoring team, always have been, at least for the foreseeable future they will be, and they don't turn the ball over a lot. I know Brees threw a pick 6 last week, and I know Ingram lost a fumble last week, but that's such a rare occurrence with the Saints team that you can't expect that, week in, week out. So I'm going to say sit the Seahawks. Just wait until next week to start them.
I'm saying sit New England against Buffalo. I've seen a lot of things that are saying the opposite, sit Buffalo against New England. But Buffalo's offense has been playing really well since week 1, since their 7-point performance week 1. They've been doing pretty well. And they don't turn the ball over. I know that obviously with the potential loss of LeSean McCoy come Sunday, that would hurt their offense, but they don't turn the ball over often, and it's difficult for a defense to be really productive for you in fantasy if they're not getting turnovers.
Especially in our league when you don't start off with 10 points, with them being at 0.
For those of you that do get points for not giving up points, that would be your best bet is New England shuts out Buffalo, but I just don't see it happening.
No, Tyrod's been playing a higher level since they've changed offensive coordinator, which I still don't quite agree with, but he's been steadily improving every week.
Even without Sammy Watkins, he's still been doing pretty well. All right, so now we'll move into our weekly picks.
Yeah.
And we'll start off with tomorrow night's game, Jacksonville at Tennessee. I'm going with Tennessee. Like I said, it generally tends to be a 1-1 split. Tennessee's playing at home. Tennessee's playing better football, in my opinion, overall. Jacksonville did get their win last week, right? They won that game? Or was that 2 weeks ago? Hold on, I got this.
Okay, he's got this.
Jacksonville.
They lost.
They lost to Oakland.
Oh, yeah.
They won the week before against Chicago. That's what it was. But, yeah, I think Tennessee, with the way Mariota's been stepping up, and their defense against Jacksonville's turnover-friendly offense, I think that Tennessee will get the win.
Yeah, I'm with Lance. I'm taking Tennessee in this one. I said it in the beginning of the episode that Tennessee, they should have won that game. They're going against a kind of, at least a similar mindset against basically the same defense. Jacksonville's been basically non-existent. Their pass defense, their pass rush has been, it hasn't been anything. I think Indianapolis has got just a little bit pass rush, which ultimately led to Tennessee losing that game. And then he touched on it. Bortles hasn't been anything like we expected him to be this season. And Tennessee's defense has been really stepping up as of late. So, taking Tennessee. Washington at Cincinnati.
It's a good game.
It should be a good game. I'm taking Cincinnati. I'm going to take the home team. If Matt Jones doesn't figure out this fumble problem, or they don't figure out switching him out soon, it's really going to come back and hurt this team. It's hurt them already. And you can't have that against Cincinnati. They're too good. If they got to get out ahead, you're not going to catch up to them.
Yeah, I'm taking Cincinnati too, and it's for one major reason. Josh Norman is still in concussion protocol, and if he doesn't show up to the game, nobody is going to have a shot at shutting down A.J. Green. We've seen what Rashad Breeland's been doing this season, and he is not playing like he did last year. Exactly. So A.J. Green is going to have a monster game if Josh Norman doesn't show up. I'm going with Cincinnati in this game.
Yeah.
Next, we got New England at Buffalo. Look, Buffalo, yeah, you beat them 16-0 in New England. But now Tom Brady's back, and they're going to be looking for some revenge. I don't think they'll be able to shut Buffalo down, but I think that they will be able to pull this game off, even if it's in Buffalo.
Oh, I definitely think so. We saw what they did last week to the Steelers' high-powered offense. I definitely think New England, they're going to handily do this. Not having Sean McCoy, that's going to hurt them. That's just one more element to their offense that's gone. But I don't think they're going to repay the favor and get blanked. So, no. Arizona at Carolina. Last year, I would have said this was a good game, This year, this isn't the same Carolina team.
It's not the same Arizona team.
It's not the same. Arizona's playing better and Carolina's playing worse. Imagine that. Definitely taking Arizona's defense to easily shut down this whatever's left of this Carolina offense.
Yeah, nice little rematch of the NFC Championship game. And
I think there might be some bad blood in this one.
It's going to go the opposite direction of what the NFC Championship game ended. I'm going with Arizona. I think that Cam Newton is Carolina's best shot at getting something done in this game, and Arizona's pass defense, like I said earlier, is playing really, really, really good football. And, yeah, I like Arizona better. Carolina's secondary.
Yeah.
Larry Fitzgerald, Michael Floyd, the speedster J.J. Nelson, who's going to be filling in because of John Brown and Jerron Brown's injuries.
Yep.
I think that
David Johnson.
Yeah, David Johnson's a beast.
In all aspects.
Yeah, I think Arizona's going to be too much for Carolina to handle. You took Arizona too, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, next we got the Jets at Cleveland, and I'm going with the Jets. Surprise? No? Yeah. Yeah. Fitzpatrick's playing angry, and I like it. I think that he has a better shot at beating Cleveland than a just coming back from injury Josh McCown / rookie Kevin Hogan, who will be playing in his second game, depending on which one ends up getting the start.
I'm going to take the upset.
Really?
I want Cleveland to win. Cleveland's at home. The Jets, they haven't been playing good. Yeah, sure, they beat the Ravens last week. Fitzpatrick's playing angry and stuff. Ravens have dropped 4 now in a row playing semi-real teams this point in the season. It's not really a dominant win here. I think if this is one of the few games that I think Cleveland can pull out. This Jets team, they're not. If it was last season, I definitely would be all in on Jets. They've got too many injuries. I think Cleveland, they're definitely playing with a chip on their shoulder. Kevin Hogan, I thought, looked really good when he stepped in last week.
When he was running.
I mean, that's whatever gets the win. And maybe we might see him air the ball out. You said it last week. Jets can't stop the deep ball.
They can't.
If Terrell Pryor's coming back, I don't know what his status is.
I'm not sure.
I haven't seen anything, but if Terrell Pryor's in, I could definitely see him getting some deep shots in. I think it'll be a close one, but I could see Cleveland eking out the win in this one.
I almost went with Cleveland, but
as soon as I saw it, I was like, I have to pick Cleveland.
I like the Jets in this one.
Detroit at Houston. I'm gonna take Houston in this one. Detroit's strength lies in their passing game. Houston's strength lies in their pass defense. And Detroit's defense, on the flip side, Houston has the weapons to be able to take advantage of Detroit's lacking secondary. So I think Houston should be able to get the win in this one.
Yeah, I'm going with Houston too. It comes down to Brock Osweiler.
It does.
If he can
definitely
figure
does.
out his little problems long enough to beat a secondary that is definitely beatable, then Houston's got this game in the bag.
I mean, even if they don't, they still have Lamar Miller back there, who has been really good down the stretch. We saw what he did their last time they were at home against the Colts.
Yeah, we did see what he did last time they were at home against the Colts. So yeah, I'm going with Houston too. Kansas City at Indianapolis. I'm taking Kansas City.
Yeah.
I think that Indy has a chance because they're at home. But Kansas City, Marcus Peters, the Indianapolis Colts offensive line is a garbage this year.
They're definitely going to get after.
Last year, the year before that, it's just a
repeating
problem. And Kansas City's got the weapons to get after Luck and force him to do stupid things. And Peters will take advantage of that, full advantage of that. So yeah. I'm definitely going with Kansas City in this game.
Yeah, I'm going with KC too for all the reasons you said. And then, like I talked about earlier, they're starting to pass the ball more, which is good news going against this Colts pass defense that has, again, been just terrible this season. So I'm taking KC.
All right, your game.
Seattle at New Orleans. It kills me. I haven't given this game much thought. I want to pick New Orleans, but I also want to pick Seattle just because it's Seattle. But with watching how Seattle played last week, I'm like, their offense was just terrible, but the Saints don't have a good defense. I'm going to take the Saints at home. Breeze hasn't been shut down this year yet, other than week 2 against the Giants, but he still managed to score a touchdown. The Saints at home are a totally different beast. If they can get Sheldon Rankins back, that'll be a huge boost to their defense. I'm not sure what quite his status is yet, but the Seahawks defense is definitely going to have their hands full with this offense. If it turns into a shootout, Russell Wilson's not playing like he has been. I don't know if they'd be able to keep up with it being a shootout.
I'm going with Seattle, and I think that they would be able to keep up because New Orleans does not have a defense. Russell Wilson, 2 weeks ago prior to the game against Arizona, looked tremendous. Having to stay in the pocket with his knee injury, looked great, throwing the ball downfield. And that's all he's going to have to do against New Orleans to get it done. Plus, Christian Michael should have a bounce-back game. I called it last week. I said don't start him because he was going against Arizona, and look what happened. Now he's going against New Orleans. You should have him back in your lineups. I think Seattle ends up winning this game. Next we got Oakland at Tampa Bay, and I am taking Oakland. I think we already touched on most of it. Tampa Bay's pass defense, Tampa Bay's secondary is they have Vernon Hargreaves, and he looks decent, rookie first-round pick. And then they have Brent Grimes, and
I think we see where you're going
really,
with that.
Yeah. Really not much. And Brent Grimes he's not even a shadow of what he used to be. So I think Amari Cooper and Michael Crabtree will be able to find holes in that secondary. And Derek Carr will get the ball.
Freaking hope so. God, you're killing me, Cooper.
And also, Oakland's defense hasn't been great this year, but Jameis Winston's been turning the ball over. So, like you said, turnovers, they're going to play a key in this game. Yeah,
if it definitely starts getting turnover happy, Oakland, they know they have their offense has been clicking. They're going to take advantage. And, I just don't see any reason why Oakland shouldn't win this, other than the fact Tampa's at home.
Yeah.
But Oakland has proven to be better on the road this season than they have been in their own home. So, I don't know. San Diego at Denver. I'm definitely taking Denver in this one. Denver's at home. They've got their coach back, which I said 2 weeks ago I think played a huge part in the reason why they lost. They didn't lose, but they had a chance to win it there at the end. 13-20. I thought we were definitely going to see another San Diego implosion.
Yeah.
San Diego, they're going to be flying high. They came off and beat one of the top NFC teams in the league. But I just think Denver's coming off an emotional high too. They stuck it to it. Their old quarterback, and they're playing. The Denver's defense is playing too well.
Yeah, I'm going with Denver too. They're at home and they're looking for some revenge. So, yeah. Green Bay at Atlanta. I'm going with Atlanta. Green Bay secondary: Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Jacob Tamme. Maybe Mohamed Sanu finally shows back up this week.
Maybe.
I mean, you
too
never
late.
know.
I cut him.
Yeah, I think Atlanta's too good for Green Bay. But on the flip side of that, Atlanta's defense has got some problems too. Aaron Rodgers could take advantage of that, maybe, if we could see the old Aaron Rodgers again. But Atlanta's at home, so I'm sticking with Atlanta.
I was going to say Atlanta. I think I'm going to go Green Bay. In this one. Atlanta's defense, the last couple of weeks, they haven't really shown up like I hoped they would. They let Melvin Gordon run all frickin' over them last week, which, thanks a lot.
Yeah, but they're not going against the Melvin Gordon
No, they're not.
this week.
But they don't need... I mean, Melvin Gordon, I think, 200-some yards, maybe almost 3 touchdowns. They're going against Green Bay. They're going against Aaron Rodgers, who's got... He's got his weapons, unlike Phillip Rivers. I like what Ty Montgomery's been doing. We might see Nile Davis worked in here. Don Jackson, at least a little reliever. We didn't see much of him before he went down with his injury to really say much. But I definitely expect this to be a high shootout. This might even come down to who turns the ball over the less, or who gets the final possession. But I'm going to take Green Bay in this.
Or if Atlanta can get a pass interference call to go their favor this time.
Or if they can make not a stupid call and go 4th and 1 on their 48 in overtime. There's quite a few things we could say here. Philadelphia, Dallas. I think this is going to be a fun game to watch.
Very good Sunday night game.
One of the best Sunday night games. Every Sunday night game between these two, they're great.
They finally got one of the primetime games right with teams that didn't do well last season. Like, I'm so sick of seeing Chicago in primetime games. There's teams that didn't do well last season that are playing primetime games that shouldn't have all these primetime games. But they finally got one right.
This one's going to be a fun one. I think, Dallas was on, were they on bye last week?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Dallas was on bye last week. That should play a huge role into this. Philadelphia, they had their bye a couple weeks ago. I don't know what's going on with the running back committee. Ryan Matthews has seen his carries go down a lot. Darren Sproles has been running it, between the tackles, which is absurd. He's never done that in his entire career. He's too small for that. Carson Wentz has looked, a little more turnover happy. I think he's thrown an interception in each of his last few games. So much for that great start. But Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott, they've been playing phenomenal. They're rested, which is going to be bad news for this Eagles defense, who has been playing well themselves, but I think they're going to have their hands full. And if Dez Bryant is expected to play like I've been reading he is, I'm going to take Dallas in this one.
I'm taking Dallas, too. I think this is going to be a low-scoring defensive game, and it's going to be fun watching Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham and Malcolm Jenkins with Philly's defense, and then going over to Dallas's defense. And they may not have the same names, but what they're doing down there, they are playing tremendous football on that defensive side of the ball, which is impressive because that's back-to-back years now.
I think I'm looking forward to Philly's defensive line against his Cowboys' offensive line. Whoever can win there should win the game.
For me, it comes down to the fact that Philly cannot run the ball, or hasn't been running the ball well, and Wentz has thrown a pick in each of his last two games. I think that Prescott hangs on to the ball, Elliott gets the running going for Dallas, and at the very least, Dallas gets in field goal range once, and they win 3-0. I mean, I don't know, but I'm going with Dallas in this game. And then Monday night, we got Minnesota at Chicago. Yeah, the Vikings bounce back in this one. I think that they can stack the box against Jordan Howard, like I said earlier, and you can pretty much discount Jay Cutler. Especially with the way Minnesota's defense has been getting turnovers. That's going to play a huge key. Sam Bradford he just has to hang on to the ball. That's all he has to do. And try not to get hit too much.
Yeah, I was going to say on the flip side here, Chicago doesn't have near the pass rush that Philadelphia has. We shouldn't be seeing those problems that Sam Bradford had where he's getting strip sacked every time he was touched. Throwing, passes that he shouldn't be throwing because they're not ready because he's got pressure in his face. And Chicago's pass defense isn't anything to really gawk at. So I shouldn't see any real reason here. And Matt Izeda has been running well when he's been in. Jerick McKinnon's status is questionable, which I think is kind of a boost for the Vikings because Jerick McKinnon hasn't been playing the best ball lately. So I'm taking Minnesota as well.
All right, well, that wraps up our podcast. Thanks for tuning in.
We'll see you next time.